Hey guys, welcome back to Attachment Authority with Jesse Rass from Jesse Rass Enterprises, where we talk about attachments and the goods and the bads and the uglies, what works for your property, what doesn't. Like I said, this podcast is designed for property guys to know what to buy, when to buy, how to buy, and which attachments work for you and which attachments don't. So tonight we're going to talk about a finishing mower and a rotary cutter and the differences between the two. We're going to talk about what applications you should use for a rotary cutter, what applications you should use for a finishing mower. So to start out with, we're going to talk about a finishing mower. So finishing mowers are designed for doing a very manicured job on your lawn or your property. They have a very high tip speed, which allows them to cut the grass very clean and precise. You typically see a finishing mower on, large landowners that want to cut a big yard, 1 or 2 acre yard. You typically see finishing mowers on like cutting the rough at a golf course. So it's really a finished item. Now, getting into that, there are several different kinds of finishing mowers on the market. You have finishing mowers that you can hook to a side-by-side, like the one you see on my screen right here. It's a self-contained unit with an engine on it that actually hooks to the front or back of a side-by-side. It has its own motor on top. You have 3-point hitch models. As you can see here, you have different widths, 5 foot all the way up to 20 foot. Now, the 3-point hitch models, let me get back to that. 3-point hitch models, they're going to go up to about max out about 9 foot. So on the 3-point hitches. So that's basically right there, your 3-point hitch finishing mower. Finishing mowers come a couple different ways, and one thing I really want to dive into on a finishing mower is you can get hard tires, you can get air tires. What are the differences? Okay. Well, the common thought process is a hard tire doesn't go flat, which is a true statement. An air tire, you've got to maintain the air in it, but also with an air tire, you're allowed to go over rough terrain, and it's a lot easier on your mower. So you need to think about that when looking at a finishing mower, because we have options for both. So air tires act as a cushion on your unit, which is actually like a suspension system, for lack of a better word here. And a hard tire is good, but it's hard, it's rough, it's rugged. It beats down on the ground when you're going over rough terrain. So like I said, finishing mowers can be hooked to tractors, anything from 25 horsepower all the way up to 100 horsepower units. So that's your typical 3-point hitch finishing mower right there. Now, when you get into the bigger models of finishing mowers, I'm going to go down here on my screen here. You can go with what we call flex swing mowers, which you see right here in this picture right here. So this is a typical flex wing, so up to 80 horsepower, 100 horsepower. These units range anywhere from a 12-foot model up to a 20-foot model. So I've got guys using these that are using them on big grass sod farms. Then I've got just large landowners that would like to just get done with the grass, man. They're tired of that daggum 72-inch deck, running back and forth, man. They want to lay out 12 foot, 15 foot, 17 foot, 20 foot, and let it eat. You know what I mean? Now, when going in depth on a flex mower, things to look at versus other flex mowers on the market, you really want to look at the independency of the decks. That's a really big deal. So on this particular model right here, which is manufactured by Bevco, they have every deck independent of one another. So as it's going over rough terrain, each deck is floating independent. There's a lot of mowers on the market that will have the two front decks independent, and then the back deck is actually running off of these two caddy tires right here. So when you go over a bump with these two caddy tires, the whole back end kicks up. So it's kind of not really productive. You know what I mean? So if you're going to if you're going to spend the money on a bigger flex swing mower, you really need to look at the independency of each deck being independent of one another. And Bethco makes a really good one out of North Carolina. Rotary cutters. We'll move into rotary cutters a little bit. So why do you need a rotary cutter? When do you need a rotary cutter? So rotary cutters are typically used for a rough cut. They're for vegetation that's got out of control a little bit, and you got to knock it down, and you're not really concerned about the real finished, pristine look as we talked about with the finishing mowers. Your typical rotary cutter goes anywhere from a 5-foot model all the way up to you can get all the way up to batwing mowers, up to 20 foot. You know what I'm saying? So, but just to give you an example here, just trying to get here, this is an example of just a regular 3-point hitch model. When looking at a rotary cutter, you need to think about how big of vegetation you're actually cutting. What you're really going to do. Are you really going to go cut 1-inch material as you see on the screen right here? You need to think about the gearbox. And let me dive into the gearbox a little bit. So, and this goes back to gearboxes in general on all these units, whether it's a flex swing finishing mower, a 3-point hitch finishing mower, or a rotary style cutter. Gearboxes are a big deal, man. People don't think about that, but you got two different kind of gearboxes. You got a kind of a gear to gear ratio, and they got what you call a spiral gear design. Now, on these models from Bethco, we offer a spiral gear design, and what that really does is it kind of like a rear end on a car, man. It allows for those teeth to mesh together really good, and allows for you to utilize a lower horsepower tractor to turn a bigger unit more efficiently, would be the way to put it. So, gearboxes are a really big deal. Ask about those warranties. Ask about who makes them. Ask about, are they U.S. made, or are they Italian made, or are they made in China? Those are the things you need to ask for, because there's a lot of big brands out there. I'm not going to say names that got gearboxes that they just put that are made in China, and they're gear to gear. So they take a little bit more horsepower than a spiral gear design. Ask about that spiral gear design. So, like I said, rotary cutters are used for guys that are, doing hunting lanes. Let's put it in real application here. They are just wanting to cut around the pond, you know what I mean, where vegetation's got bigger. Maybe they have some overgrown area. They just they've stumped the ground and got the land clear, but they've kind of left it and let it grow back up to cut little saplings and things like that. And rotaries go, like I said, man, they can have either there's one other thing I wanted to get into is you got a clutch system on a rotary cutter, and you got a shear bolt, and that's an option you have. Now with a clutch system on a rotary cutter, you got to adjust your clutches, make sure they're properly done, and you got to make sure that you got to maintain that. You can't just have one of the clutch and expect it to last forever without doing some little bit of maintenance on it. Make sure the tension's correct on it. Make sure you don't overslip the clutch. If you ever glass a clutch over, I call it, then you're going to have issues with it slipping real bad on you just going over regular terrain, but a regular brush. Now a shear pin technology is a good one too. It's a good safety. Shear pins, basically, if you were to, when you're cutting, let's say you go hit a big rock, or you hit a big stump that won't give, that shear pin shears off, which allows that thing to free spool so it doesn't tear up the gearbox and tear up everything. So a shear pin is a really good thing on a mower. A clutch is a great thing too. You just got to manage it. You need to understand the difference. So typically clutches are a little bit more expensive than a shear pin. So that'll be a choice that you make when buying a rotary cutter. So, like I was saying, we make rotary cutters. A 6-foot model is a pretty typical model. We make them different thicknesses as far as like steel and how heavy the gauge of steel is on these units. Category 1, Category 2 hitches. We got, you got light duty ones, you got medium duty, and then you got your heavy duty units, and all different calibers. So, you can go with 1-inch material, 2-inch material, 3-inch material, meaning you can cut 1-inch stuff, 2-inch stuff, and 3-inch diameter stuff. So make sure you ask those questions, and make sure you go through your property and really look at, go after the biggest thing you got on the property and then work your way down. Don't go buy a 1-inch cutting unit and expect to cut 3-inch material and the unit hold up. It ain't gonna do it. It's just not gonna do it. It's a waste of your money. Go ahead and spend the money up front. Take the hit. You know what I mean? Go with if you're cutting 2-inch material. Hey man, I'd go with a 3-inch unit. You know what I mean? Personally, that way you got a little bit of overkill, man. Don't push it to the limit. Just go the little extra mile there and get really what you need. And hold your dealers accountable for what they're selling you and what they're saying that it can do and it can do. With Befco personally, they only make 3-point hitch models, but there's a lot of other manufacturers up there that make larger units. You with me? But they specifically have that like keep going back to that gearbox. You know what I mean? But they specifically have that spiral gear design, which is a really big deal. So, like I said before, a finishing mower is typically designed for maintenance that's really meticulous, doing a really pretty job, kind of like you see on the rough of a golf course or just your front yard, just like you would like a 72-inch, zero-turn mower, let's say, or a 60-inch, or something you may buy at Lowe's. But think about those finishing mowers on your larger land contractors, larger landowners. If you want to cut the grass a lot faster, and dedicate a little tractor to it, maybe you look at getting a bigger finishing mower that's a flex swing, 12 foot all the way up to 20 foot, and even you big grass farmers out there, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Georgia, over the U.S., there's a lot of big grass farmers that need a finishing mower to maintain that grass pretty regularly. So, you need to think about those bigger 20 foot units. And I know there's bigger ones than that out there, but just for a property maintenance side of it, about 20 is about as max as I see people really want to go. Most of them sold are about 15 foot for larger landowners. So, in closing, I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in to Attachment Authority. This is our 3rd episode. I really enjoy this, man. And if I could be of any assistance, please feel free to contact me at 803-420-4102 or check out my website at www.jesserassenterprises.com. Have a good night.